So Yorgos Christidis, Professor Yorgos Christidis and Panayotis Paskalidis, welcome in our program. You're here in Skopje to present the findings of your research about the possible cooperation in the field of home and justice and home affairs. But when talking about justice and home affairs, one of the first issues that I have in mind, and not only me, but our viewers also, is the issue of the 2 refugees that are right now in your country, yes, and they got the political asylum. So would you be so kind to explain the decision of the Greek court, why, yes, they have granted the political asylum to those, yes, 2 refugees who were charged for a very serious, yes, crime?
First of all, Mr. Jovanovski, thank you for the invitation. Well, to be frank, right from the beginning, I am a media specialist, media researcher in Eliamep in Athens. So I don't have the legal background to discuss the legal aspects of the case. But of course, I would like to share with you and your viewers how it was presented in the Greek media. So the Greek media basically focused their attention on 3 events. It was the October 2017 when the 2 men were arrested in Thessaloniki airport. The second was the decision of the Court of Appeal of Thessaloniki to give a green light for the extradition to your country. And the third one was in May 2018 when the Greek Supreme Court, Arios Pagos, decided that from what the Greek media reported, not to grant them asylum, but to say that they could not be extradited. That was in essence.
So why not?
Well, according to the way it was presented in the Greek newspapers and the Greek lawyer who represented them, there was an argument that they considered that they would not have the conditions for a fair trial in your country. Yes. So
because there is political influence.
No, if
in the justice.
No, in the Greek media, the information that was presented, always through what their Greek lawyer, of course, stated, was that they had been given a pardon, which was later revoked. So there was a confusion about this issue, and finally, yeah, but about the asylum, I'm not sure that this was.
So let's talk about the building measures in the field of cooperation and justice and home affairs.
Yes.
If there is any cooperation, it would be, this case would be a very much let's say, concrete demonstration, yeah, of the willing of the both sides to cooperate.
Yes.
If there is any suspicion in Greece about the politicization of the judiciary in Macedonia, we have a problem to build a proper, confident measures.
Yes.
Do we agree?
First of all, thank you for having us here. No, I don't agree with what you said exactly. We have to judge case by case judicial cooperation because each case has its own peculiarities. We're not legal experts, but in each case there's specific legal thinking, so we have to judge that. Now, what we have done with our research is looking at the evolution of justice and police cooperation before and after the confidence-building measures. We want to see how things have changed after the adoption of the confidence-building measures in June 2015.
Your comment?
Yes, I could, of course, agree with my colleague, but also I would like to remind another case. Was a few years earlier when your country gave the green light for the extradition of wanted very well-known businessman from Greece. I think also in that case, as the one you mentioned, there was cooperation, but there was a decision that perhaps you can have different interpretation, but there was cooperation. And in our research, we wanted to show exactly how this cooperation evolved from difficult periods in the 90s until the time of the adoption of the confidence-building measures.
So in your opinion, do you think that the dominant is is the law or the political decisions when talking about cooperation in justice and home affairs, having in mind the all delicate situation?
If you're referring to the decision by the court, it's a legal decision.
Yes.
It's based on a case by case. The courts in Greece are independent institutions, and they judge on the merits of its case.
So what are
Also, if
Yes.
I may, from the late 90s until recent times, both countries participate in, are contracting parties in international conventions about judicial cooperation, as it is called in legal matters. So it's a legal framework. So it cannot be easily influenced by, at least, I mean, this is the principle. So yes, both countries are now contracting parties in the basic. This is what we studied in our research. There, from the late 90s until today, there are contracting parties in the basic conventions that regulate how judicial cooperation should be done.
By strengthening the cooperation in the field of justice and home affairs, do you believe that this extradition would be possible in foreseeable future?
Difficult to say.
Again, I would like to underline something. Each case has its own merits. You seem to give a lot of emphasis on that case, but that case does not really define the course of judicial cooperation. It's an individual case.
But if in Greece the courts say that there is the judiciary in Macedonia is politicized, it will be difficult to build a confident building measure.
To be honest, the Greek media didn't have such interpretations. Didn't have. They didn't.
It is just related with abolition from the president.
Yes, but just the basic facts were presented, and particularly as they were presented by the people who are involved in legal matters, the lawyers, and the decision of the court. No, so there wasn't any legal interpretation of why was this decision taken that way, or we didn't have any discussion about that.
Okay, what are the findings of your research? What could we do in order to strengthen the cooperation?
Concerning judicial cooperation or police cooperation?
Judiciary and home affairs.
Okay, we can begin with judicial cooperation.
Yes. One of the findings, the key findings that we had, was that, as I said, both countries are participating in international conventions that regulate judicial cooperation since the late 90s, so this is good. This is why the people who we interviewed in Greece said that the cooperation in this matter between the two countries is rather functional and satisfactory. But what is missing in this type of cooperation is precisely the bilateral agreements. So possibly in the near future we can have bilateral agreements that could advance and enhance a better understanding of the legal systems between the two countries, so that there's no better knowledge.
What we are missing right now?
Bilateral agreements.
What kind of,
for instance, if we take
concrete,
yes, if we take justice as an example, yes, a bilateral agreement, a bilateral protocol of cooperation in justice could be the bringing together of judicial authorities to see the particularities of each country in terms of its system, and to have a better knowledge of the one of the other. This is a type of agreement that could be very beneficial.
And Professor Christidis, what about the police cooperation?
We have to take into account the past. What existed after 1991 was the legacy from the days of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, the so-called border committees. After 1995 and the signing of the interim agreement, the possibilities opened up for state agencies like the police to develop cooperation. In 1998, we had the signing of a protocol exactly on police cooperation that was never ratified by the Greek Parliament. It was never ratified because there was the influence of the so-called name dispute. Now, what we saw and what we identified was that the name dispute really hindered the development of cooperation between two very important state agencies like the police, which belong to the hardcore of state and in a way are very sensitive to any kind of bilateral disputes. Bilateral cooperation in the 2000s developed mainly in the framework of multilateral initiatives, like the Security Pact and SECI that had, among others, an ambition to develop regional police cooperation. After 2006, with admittedly the stagnation, even deterioration of bilateral relations, there is no really cooperation essentially. Now, things change in 2015 with the signing of the confidence building measures. The political will develop and to improve relations
forward.
Allowed exactly for the police forces, which anyway you have to be aware that the policemen have a very practical spirit. What they want to is to fight crime, but they have to be freed from political inhibition. So once the government showed that there is a political will to develop relations, and that was illustrated in the confidence building measures signed at that time, confidence building measure number 10 concerns the development of justice and home affairs cooperation.
Do we have now an open door towards a productive cooperation within a framework of this agreement signed in June 2015 to build a confident?
Of course, what we saw concerning police cooperation, that since then we have a number of meetings between the heads of the police force of the two countries. We have much more improved exchange of information. We have a willingness to develop cooperation into new fields, for example, fighting financial crimes, establishing a so-called contact point. The will is there, and we have seen a number of meetings, or even participating in common training activities, things that were...
In a recent past?
Those things...
We are talking for the period since June 2015.
The things I'm referring now concern the period after October, after June 2015.
When
those
this agreement was signed.
When the confidence building measures were signed, the confidence building measures continued after the change of government in Skopje, because the political will to improve relations not only remained, but was intensified by the new government in Skopje.
To reach a proper and to achieve the concrete result, I think the implementation of the PRESPA agreement would be crucial. So let's talk about the PRESPA agreement. What are the reactions in your country in regards to the ongoing public debate for the constitutional changes here in Macedonia? Well, what's your comment?
Yeah, just to give a short idea about the media. I think that if we look at the media, especially before the agreement, let's start with January 2018. I think one of the, let's say, the positive effects of the beginning of these negotiations was the fact that the issue was brought up to the public attention in a very intensive manner. So you had a lot of opinion, you had, of course, there was a lot of passion, but I think that the public opinion was exposed to different very different perceptions and interpretations of what was going on. And I think, from my point of view, let's say from the research of media, that was rather positive, because really the public was exposed to a lot of information and became more aware of, let's say, of course, the complexity of the matter, but also all the new developments. So
is there optimism that the constitutional change amendment will be adopted?
Yes, as far
having in mind all,
yes,
circumstances.
I think there's a consensus in Greece that constitutional reforms will take place here. But let me add something. In Greece, we have entered a pre-election period, which means that unfortunately the debate about the PRESPA agreement has been, to a large extent, become victim and hostage to the pre-election confrontation between the political parties. What we see as people who follow the public debate is that quite often they seek to interpret the agreement not on its own merits, but from a different angle. If the agreement benefits the government or if the agreement is against the opposition. And unfortunately that distorts and has distorted the debate about the Prespas agreement in Greece to a certain extent.
But you believe that the constitutional amendment will be adopted here?
Yeah, that's it's a, like Professor Oktidis said, yeah, I think it's a common
the agreement,
perception.
Of course, yes, I think there is a consensus with that the agreement...
But some of the political leaders still not sure.
You mean in Greece now?
Here.
Ah, that's...
Okay, that's why I'm asking how you see from, from the other side of the border.
Well, I think the feeling is for people who follow developments here that the government is in a position to secure the necessary votes.
I think how the Gruevski escape was commented.
Also, not a lot of articles about that. Just information and you know, the factual aspects. Not too much analysis about that. Also, very interesting story to follow. In any case.
Well, I think first of all there is a feeling of sadness for all those people that believe to Mr. Gruevski. I think they have been greatly disappointed. They are owed, I think, an explanation. And I think it's sad for him, himself, a former ex-prime minister, to leave the country as the worst criminal. I think it's sad for a man.
There was a general perception in Greece about Macedonia that everybody here is very much willing to take the Greek history, to steal the Greek history, and that the nationalism is a dominant ideology. Do you think that this perception somehow changed in Greece?
But again, to give you my understanding of the public debate in the media, I think that precisely this context, the present context, beginning January 2018 until now, I think that there was plurality, let's say better plurality in this type of discussion in Greece for the first time. So the Greek public was presented to other views, not only the one you mentioned. Of course there were passion, especially in the social media, there was a lot of passion in the debates and so on, but I would like to give this optimistic view that this perception has evolved in the Greek public debate. There's not so much...
But there is concern. I would like to say that there is concern about specific issues and how they have been dealt with following the signing of the agreement. For example, recent statements by the Prime Minister were seen by parts of the Greek public.
That was my question.
There is concern, certainly there is concern, and I think that underlines the importance of being really very careful.
How it was understood, this statement of the Prime Minister Zaev about the Macedonian language school in Greece? There was a lately there was an explanation from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that it was misinterpreted. And
in one phrase, it was saying as an intervention in our internal affairs.
Yes.
That should not be repeated.
And of course, a threat to the process of...
So, my next question, are we sure that Tsipras is in a position to assure the necessary majority to adopt the Prespa agreement in the parliament? Because it's also an open, how do you say it?
Right now, the assessment made by the majority of analysts in Athens is that yes, Mr. Tsipras has the necessary majority to make sure that the agreement will be ratified. But in terms of politics, 2 months is a long time. Many things could happen. We never know. Right now, the assessment is, however, that yes, Mr. Tsipras has the necessary number of votes to see the agreement going through the parliament.
Which party are going to create the necessary majority, having in mind that his minor coalition partner is against? Minister of Defense.
Well, the Constitution says that for an agreement of that sort to be ratified, you need the absolute majority of the members of Parliament present at the Parliament. So that means we have a number of variations that have taken into account how many MPs will be present at the day of the voting in Parliament. Secondly, if Mr. Tsipras and his party will be supported from so-called independent MPs or from other parties. Now, there is another party, like the Potami party, that until recently was saying that it will vote for the agreement.
What about the media? How media are they supportive for PESPA agreement?
I think.
I mean, of course, there are various diverse.
Yes, of course. Also
opinions, etc. But what about the main players in the media?
I should say that, of course, there are media who are closer to the government position, media closer to the opposition, of course. I should say that, like Professor Xyzis said, that as we are entering the pre-electoral period, let's say, I sense that the media have started to, let's say, to adopt, let's say, more polarized positions according to the political orientations that they follow. So I mean, in the opposition, one might say that they are they are more closer now to the opposition, let's say, position about the agreement. So this is I'm seeing this polarization for the time being. Yes,
I will say something there. Unfortunately, yes, the media, because we have entered a pre-election campaign period, in many cases do not contribute to a rational debate around the PESPA agreement. Again, they use party political motives to analyze the agreement, and this does not help in the public debate, and this is my personal assessment.
Okay, Professor Christidis, Mr. Paskalidis, it was a pleasure to having you in our program.
It was our pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.